Right now, though, we're going to switch back to some state politics. In our first half hour, we looked at what Iowa lawmakers were up to, and now we're on the Illinois side. We've been spending a lot of time looking at the bills that have passed and are still making their way through votes this session. But this week, we're starting with the bill that failed to pass before committee deadline. And it's why we're joined by Peter Hancock, State House reporter for the nonprofit newsroom Capital News, Illinois. All right, Peter, thank you so much for being back with us again. This bill would have created some of the very first regulations for warehouses when it comes to pollutions in the state. What happened?
Well, as happens with a lot of bills, there was a deadline for bills to come out of committee. There are all kinds of deadlines because the legislative session only runs from January through May, and things have to be done on a certain schedule. But there's an old saying, that nothing that dies in the State House ever stays dead for very long. So, there's a chance, there's always a chance this could come back up again. But essentially, we're looking at these very large warehouses and fulfillment centers like Amazon fulfillment centers, which can also be the hubs of a lot of railroad and tractor trailer traffic and all kinds of diesel exhaust that comes out of that. And so there was this bill to start trying to control the amount of air pollution coming out of these large warehouses and fulfillment centers. It would have given the Illinois EPA authority to require fees and to start, basically licensing these things or permitting them and encouraging them to reduce their emissions. There just wasn't a whole lot of support for this. It didn't gain a lot of traction in the early part of the session. I think maybe some people are a little leery about the idea of giving environmental regulators authority to levy more fees and creating new bureaucratic procedures for this growing industry. We live in a very consumer-driven economy right now, and a lot of, we order a lot of the goods and services that we get online. And so I think there just wasn't quite a willingness to tackle this issue head on right now. But it certainly could come up later.
Well, last week, the Cook County Treasurer dropped a report that found that Cook County's property taxes have grown a lot faster than inflation and wage growth over the last 30 years. And this renewed calls among Republicans, including House Republican leader Tony McCombie of our area in Savannah, blaming Democrats. What's going on here?
Well, that report really kind of struck a nerve statewide because even though it dealt specifically with Cook County, Illinois, by and large, has some of the highest, if not the highest, property tax rates in the nation. Even though the state of Illinois itself does not levy property taxes, it kind of sets the rules for how local governments do it. And because of the way, our state and local governments are structured, local governments are basically very reliant on property taxes, cities, counties, and in particular, school districts. If you look at anybody in Illinois, more than half of their property tax bill goes to their local school district. And it really boils down to the state's whole school finance scheme, which they have tried to reform. Starting back in 2017, they were trying to shift more of the cost of public education onto the state and away from local property taxes. But it really hasn't had the kind of effect that they were hoping for. And so Republicans came out and said, yes, it's time to, really address property tax reform in Illinois. Democrats, the Republicans have a few bills on the table. Some of it, one of them, I think, would provide for some specific school funding grants to local school districts as long as they agree to use those to buy down property tax reductions. Democrats are saying, that where's the money going to come from, essentially? If you want to shift the burden of paying for school finance away from property taxes onto something else, you either have to raise income taxes or some other form of taxes from the state, or you have to cut state spending in some other area. And they're saying the Republicans really haven't come up with a comprehensive plan for that. Nevertheless, I mean, this report, it came out just as in Cook County, they have, it was April 1st was the deadline for people to make their first half installment on their 2025 property tax bills. And so this report came out basically explaining why your property taxes keep going up and up and up. It pointed the blame largely at school districts because that's where most of the property taxes go. But it also pointed the blame at the state of Illinois for allowing a lot of loopholes. There is a property tax lid law in Illinois called PTEL, and there are a lot of exceptions that allow local governments to raise property taxes above what would ordinarily be the limits. So I think this is probably going to get a lot more attention. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of action this legislative session, but it's certainly, in an election year, this is something that a lot of politicians are paying close attention to. And it's something that, they're getting a lot of feedback from voters about this. That report really struck a nerve with a lot of people.
Well, Peter, we just have a few seconds left. So really briefly, something that's been at the center of strong debates on both sides of the river is E15 gasoline and using it year-round. There are a lot of federal regulations in place that keep it from being used in the summertime, but Governor Pritzker is calling on Congress to do something. What does he want?
He wants Congress to allow E15 gasoline, that's 15% ethanol, to be sold year round. Right now, you're not allowed to sell it in the summer months, and I don't understand all of the science and physics behind this. But the concern is that during the summer months, ethanol blended gasoline creates more smog, especially in urban areas, more air pollution. And there are environmental concerns about it. But this idea comes up routinely whenever you see the prices of gasoline starting to go up, as they have been since the war in Iran started. Here in Illinois, we're now paying, well above $4 a gallon for gasoline. The ethanol blended gasoline, because the ethanol is less expensive when you blend it with gasoline, the whole product becomes less expensive. And so I think the governor is pushing for something to not only bring down the price of gasoline, but also to create additional demand and additional markets for corn. Both Iowa and Illinois are major corn producing states. And so that would, in their view, that would, help boost the market price of corn and help corn farmers probably in both states. So he's pushing for year-round ethanol, E15. I think the federal EPA did just extend the deadline for using E15 by a little bit, and they've said that they'll, consider maybe a further extension, beyond May. But we've seen no, as far as I know, there hasn't been any more action beyond that.
Peter Hancock, as always, thank you so much for your reporting. And we have our political coverage for both states up on our website underneath the As Seen on TV tab. James?